Hey there, welcome to the My Risk Advisor podcast. This podcast is for anyone in the financial planning ecosystem with a focus on life risk insurance. I'm your host, Phil Thompson, Director and Financial Advisor at Sky Wealth, and I've been on a business journey over the last few years going from a struggling holistic advice firm with one staff member, considering packing it all in, to pivot the business now to being one of Australia's leading specialist insurance advice firms with over 7 advisors, 30 team members, and helping hundreds of clients every single year get important insurance cover in place. I am unashamed to say that this podcast is so I can continue to grow and develop as an advisor and a business owner as I interview some incredibly smart individuals. So keep on listening so you can learn alongside me. All right, today with me, I've got Deline Jacovides, a good friend of mine and someone I had on the podcast a long time ago when Deline was 8 weeks into her business. And so I thought I'd get her back on and talk about her business journey. So thanks for coming on, Deline.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Yeah, I was 8 weeks in I was 8 weeks into my business when we last did this podcast recording. So it has been a while, and I actually went back and listened to that on 2 times speed this morning while I was dropping the kids off at school in kindy. And a lot has changed.
It's good. It's one of these things that, like, I'm so fortunate that I grew up in an era where not everything was on Facebook when I was a teenager, because I can imagine being so embarrassed with my opinions, my thoughts, my feelings. Was it a bit like that when you were listening?
Oh, yeah. Cringe. It was so cringe.
It's so good. You're a little business baby back then, and now you're growing up.
Yeah, I'm still a toddler, but, slowly getting there.
Yeah, awesome. So, all right. So I want to, first of all, congratulate you for being a finalist in the Inspire Women Excellence in Advice for the FAAA. So congratulations. That's kind of one of our top awards in our industry. So great job being a finalist.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of 3 finalists. And it's a bit of a process. I applied for the AFA Female Excellence in Advice Award a couple of years ago. That was in my first year of business. And then after that point, I was like, I'm not applying for any more awards because they do take so much time and so much effort. And you know what it's like, you go for them as well. So I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to focus on, my business and revenue and all that kind of stuff, growing the team. And anyway, I got convinced to apply this year. So I did. And I'm actually glad I did, because it made me sit down and look at my application from last time, from 2 years ago, and just see how much has changed and how, different things are. Yeah, I'm just glad that I applied, because it got me thinking about what I've done in the last, 2.5 years, and how much I've grown and everything I've done. And I wouldn't have probably sat down and realized how much I had done if I didn't go for that award. Yeah.
And I think the great thing about the awards is that you do get to talk to other business owners about what they're doing and how they're going about it. And one thing that is, as a business owner, it is sometimes hard to just stop and look back and go, okay, what have I achieved over the last X amount of years, and really take note. I don't know if you're like me, I generally don't celebrate the wins of the past. I'm always just underperforming my expectations of the future is the way I think about it.
100%. I always feel like that. So I'm also really bad at talking, if I was talking to a friend, I'd be telling them how great they're doing and all that kind of stuff. But then for myself, I'm definitely not as positive as I should be. So it is a good chance to stop and actually try and celebrate.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And it's definitely an award that, everyone walks into it and says, anyone is a finalist, is a deserving winner. But I know when you are on the outside looking in, everyone in the industry has their pick of who they want to win. And so you're my pick. And I did send you a message say I'll write the FAAA conference if you don't win. So best of luck to the others, but I hope you win.
Thank you.
So I want to spend a lot of time talking about your business journey, as we said. If anyone wants to listen back to that episode we did a few years ago, that'd be good. But help us understand kind of where's your business at today. Just set the ground as to where you're at.
Yeah, because last time I was 8 weeks in, so it was all about how I actually, what prompted me to start my business, and what things did I do leading up to it, and where was I getting clients from, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, lots happened since then. So it's coming up to 3 years at the end of January. So whatever that is, 2 years and 9 months in. And I now have 2 full-time VAs working for me, supporting me in the business, doing, a lot of administration and implementation and all that kind of stuff. And I have about 110 clients I've helped in the last, 2.5 years. That's where things are at the moment. And I didn't explicitly say what sort of, technology and stuff like that I was using 2.5 years ago, but I can definitely say there's a lot of new tools and systems I'm using now compared to what I was then.
Cool. 2 VAs. And when did you bring on your first VA?
I think it was about 10 months in when I brought the first one on. That one actually didn't work out. And so I had to let her go in her probation. She just, their job has to have a lot of attention to detail, and she was getting, wrong names or dates of birth and things like that in applications. So nothing kills confidence with a client quicker than filling in forms wrong, like their basic details. So I had to let her go. And then I had, so I went through VA Platinum, is who I've gone through for the VAs. So then I hired another one. We went and found another one. And on the day that she was meant to start, she decided she didn't want to work in an office. So that didn't work out. And then the next one I've had for over 18 months. I can't remember exactly. She's actually a financial advisor in the Philippines. So she's accredited with AIA over there. And she's fantastic. So I'm so lucky to have her. And then the second one I brought on maybe about 7 or 8 months ago. There's definitely my first one, Bianca's been away for the last week on annual leave, and you definitely see the hole that they feel when they're away. And Kai's had a few other things going on as well. So there was a day where I had no VA online, and that was
realizing how much they do and how helpful the team members are. Yeah, cool. And so in terms of, one thing about bringing on team members, it's always, I find when I first started and I found difficult was like, what work are they going to do? How do I actually give up the work? And you said nothing kills confidence to clients more than incorrect stuff. Also, nothing kills confidence that you have in your team member to go, can I really give that to them and not like look over everything every single time? So that does make it difficult. But did you find it hard when you first brought on someone to first of all work out what tasks they were going to work on? And then second, did you find it difficult actually giving up some of the work?
Yeah, and I still do sometimes. But I guess I just thought, wrote a list before I hired one and thought, okay, what are the things that they can, quite repetitive tasks and things that they can do that are kind of lower risk in terms of, sending off third-party authorities, getting the clients to sign engagement letters and, fact finds and all that kind of stuff. So there was a whole list of things I wrote. And then just as time has gone on, and then if they say that they've got capacity to do new things, and I think about, okay, well, what else can they do? What else can they take off my plate? And that's how you just start slow and start giving them more and more as they become more efficient on the tasks that they can do. And I'm really lucky that Bea is also really good with, Canva and things like that. So she helped build out client brochures and other resources that we send to clients, review checklists or just fact sheets and those sorts of things. Helps me a bit with my social media posts. So she's a bit of an all-rounder there.
Yeah. And it's one of these funny things, you being new at hiring VAs also means that, the team members coming on board from the Philippines, they may be less hesitant, or they may be more hesitant joining a newer business who doesn't have a established kind of framework and established business, because you're basically going in there and going, hey, we're going to work this out. We're going to jump off the cliffs and build the plane as we go down and hope it works out. So there is kind of risk on both sides. Risk for you that hey, this team member may not work out, but also a similar risk for them joining your business.
Yeah, and I actually do wonder with that first VA that didn't work out, because I was obviously still trying to build out actual documented processes and things like that when she was on board. And I do wonder if things would have been a bit different if she had joined now compared to back then. But at the end of the day, she just didn't have the right behaviours and attitudes and things like that. So I don't think it would have changed the outcome regardless, but it was good to have her on board at that time, because it did mean I was kind of getting a practice run in terms of building out all the documented processes and workflows and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and my personal view is if VAs don't work, it's almost certainly the business owner's fault. We've hired a lot of team members in the Philippines, and there have definitely been team members that didn't work out. And over time, as we're more established, being able to go, I know it's the team member and not our systems and processes.
Yeah.
Many people coming into that system and process and working through it. But early on, I used to kind of blame the team member and be like, oh, they're not working out, they're not good enough. And then I kind of like looked in the mirror, I was like, oh, it's actually my systems and processes and, these things that I could have done better. And whether they would have worked out or not in the long term may still be the same outcome.
Yeah.
But I think it's easy for businesses to go, oh, it's that team member.
Yeah.
Instead of going, actually, like, how do I help them succeed and be as best as they can be?
Yeah, it's not you, it's me. No, it's so true though, because even when I've worked in Australian businesses as an advisor or an associate, and there had been high turnover in businesses, it was like, well, you don't actually have a proper system. Like, no one knows what they're actually doing here. That's why you got high turnover. But I'll tell you a bit more about that VA offline. But she actually came from another advisor, and they let her go. And then I contacted that other advisor, and him, and said, oh, like, what's the go with this VA? And he said, oh, I just don't have the time to train her. She's great, blah, blah. And then I took her on, and then she was not great. And so I contacted him after, and he was like, oh, so it was her, not us. Like, I thought it was me, but maybe it was her. But maybe it was both of us. Who knows?
Yeah, and it is. I mean, we've had phone calls from people leaving our team, and it's one of these things. It's like you don't want to damage their career, but you want to be as kind of candid as possible, and it is a difficult kind of thing.
Yeah.
We can take that offline because we don't want to disparage anyone or any company or anything like that. So let's talk about. I remember when we first spoke, even before we started, and in that episode, you talked about you got an Excel spreadsheet with beautiful projection, and exactly everything's going to be linear and perfectly mapped out for the next X amount of years. With your husband being an accountant, you guys did all this. Do you still look back at that original Excel spreadsheet, or is it something that you've updated all the time? Like, what does that
update all the time? But I actually didn't, because I wrote down a couple of notes from that podcast that we did, and you made a really good point. I had to write it down. As a business owner, you've got to be prepared to lose money. I think that's so true, because I literally get messages every week from advisors or people in advice saying, oh, like, you're an inspiration. I want to start my own business, and like, you inspire me, and I'm starting my business because you've blah, blah, inspired me all the time. And then I've got so many people saying, like, I want to do it, but I'm scared. Like, yeah, we're all scared. Like, you just got to, and I did keep saying on that last episode, like, I'm the type of person that's all about just implementation and action. Like, that's more important than just, you can read a million books, but unless you put it in action, nothing's going to actually happen. So, you do have to be prepared to lose money at the start. And that certainly did happen. But I also do laugh that I remember I had pretty low benchmarks at that time in terms of, like, I just need to make X, Y, Z, profit or, money to keep kind of thing after net income. Just didn't make this much to, like, cover our costs, family costs and things like that. And then I just, like, laugh at how low that benchmark was. So, yeah.
And let me just dial into that point. Is that because the costs of running a business was so much greater than you originally anticipated? So when you're charging out, let's just put out a number, $100,000, the actual money that you will take home as the income for your household is so much lower because you just underestimated the cost of that running that business. Is that?
Yeah, that, and also just because I had never had to look for clients before I started my own business. I was always fed clients. So I thought, even though I had a social media following and I had some referral partners, it was still just that confidence, I guess. Yeah, I really had to get some wins on the board. And then as time has gone on, you then have some cash flow to then increase your expenses to then make things a more valuable experience for the client. also make my life easier, and then also being able to charge more as well, because you have that confidence in, I've got a bit of a wait list now, so I can be a bit choosy on who I want to work with and, charge a bit more as well.
Yeah. And it's funny, there's a strange dynamic in financial advice. We want to help our clients succeed financially. That's our goal and our aim as financial advisors. And so when we charge a higher fee, we know as financial advisors, we are negatively impacting our stated goal to help those clients. And so there's always this weird dynamic where advisors, I do find new business owners will come in and go, I can charge so much less than the business I'm working for because I'm smarter, I'm more efficient, I'm this, I'm that. And then over time they realize, and because they've got a true desire to help our clients, and we understand that fee just negatively impacts our clients. And that's just we get Excel spreadsheets and how they work. But over time, they start increasing their fees, not because they're greedier, not even because most advisors are like, well, I'm in demand, so I can charge a high premium. It's like, no, I've got to actually run a profitable business.
100%.
So I need to charge more. And so, I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day. He's totally different industry, exercise, physiologist, and talking about the charge out rate for the business he's working for and how he's thinking about going on his own. And I was like, whoa, don't ever look at charge out rates. Don't ever look at advice fees on its own. If you want to start your own business, my advice to anyone is, if you're working for someone else, be transparent. Say, this is my aim. As someone who hires lots of advisors, very comfortable with any of them wanting to start their own business. But then spend the time going, hey, can I actually look at the financials? Can I actually look at the cash flow of the business that I'm working in? Because I may look at a 10 grand SOA fee and it may be crazy expensive in my mind, but you look at the underlying cost, cash flow of the business, you go, well, okay, there's actually not that much money left over in the end of it. So, and is that kind of your experience? As you're saying, your fees are increasing? Is it more just out of the reality of, it's actually the cost of doing business?
Yeah, like that. But, things have gone up. There was, I think X-Plan went up, 10% in 1 year, and we had, we've got CSLR jumping in there as well, all these different things that do just increase. So there's got to be that natural increase for clients as well. But then there's other things that I've implemented in the last couple of years to make my life easier and to make the experience better for the clients, such as I use Voyant for modeling, cash flow modeling and projections, and clients absolutely love it because you can do things real time with them and show them, even from an insurance perspective, you can just take out one of their salaries from the projections and then show them all the red that's going to be in their future if they don't have proper protection. And so, my clients love that. That costs money, and that's not something I had on day one. That's something I implemented, once I had some more cash flow. Then there's things like I use IFAC Fine for data collection and client portal type software. That costs money as well. So all these things that I've implemented over time when I've had more stability in revenue. And I do think that those things, the client might not realize it adds value, but it does. It actually makes their life easier as well, having, these different things. It's a combination of points, I think, that play into it.
Yeah. All right. Let me hit you with a hard question. Is your revenue at the number today than you thought it was going to be before you started? Is it above or below?
Well,
the first Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, well, it's above the first Excel spreadsheet, but lower than where I would like the adjusted spreadsheet has gone. Because I guess it comes down to you keep adjusting your expectations and goals.
Yes. Yeah. And so let me just lean on that. So when you first started, you were super conservative and you thought, hey, if I get 2 clients a year, then happy days. You were just incredibly conservative in your initial projections. And over time, you got runs on the board. You're like, hey, I actually can make a business out of this. This is not just not a hobby anymore. I can make a business.
It was never going to be a hobby. Yeah.
and then as you're growing and seeing runs on the board, you go, hey, let's adjust this where the growth wants to go. And then, and so you've increased that.
The revenue needs to be higher because your expenses are higher. I've got 2 full-time VAs as a start. So that's an expense there. But people think they're really cheap. But if you go through an agency like VA Platinum, it's still like not as cheap as some people think, especially when you speak to other professionals like lawyers, or I've got a good friend who is in like something to do with web or app development or something like that. I don't really know what she does. But she talks about the VA that she hires, and then she's always shocked at how much more it is in financial services compared to like other industries. So yeah, I mean, like all those things cost money. So your revenue does have to be high, as that's why that expectation has changed over time. But I also have noticed that, yes, my revenue may not be where I would like it to be, but the money I get to keep, that net income, it's still growing, which is a positive. That's the main number you've got to focus on, not just the revenue.
Correct. Yes. I mean, yeah, you're in business not just to give yourself a wage, but you're building an asset or taking profits as well. Again, I'm going to ask a plenty personal question. You just tell me to get stuff if you don't want to, because I think it's super helpful to be transparent. My view is, anyone can ask me any questions, I'll give the answer. But like, in terms of like replacing your wage, like have you succeeded in that? Are you on the path to that? What is that?
Yeah. So not yet. Haven't replaced it yet, but not far off. And so it's also really hard to know whether I would actually be earning that salary in this point in my at this point in time. And the reason is because of my personal circumstances. So when I had started my business, my husband was only working 3 days a week. He was working part-time or casually. And he had a bit of a portfolio career happening. So he had his an accountant. So he was, had some private clients that he looked after himself. And then he was working in a, engineering firm casually, as an accountant. So had a bit of a thing happening there. So he was able to take on a lot more like domestic duties and things like that. But then at the start of the year, he got a tap on the shoulder to, his company got bought out by a US listed company. And they've offered him a huge promotion with a, very attractive salary. And at the start, he was like, I don't know if I want to work full time. And I was like, you're going to go back to work full time. You're going to go take that salary. So
the financial planning that's kicked in. It was like, okay, let's put that in the household budget.
Yeah, it was like a very good salary. So I was like, no, you're going to do that, because I don't think he would have had that opportunity if he applied for it. But because he was in the business and they knew him and they really liked him and they knew what he was capable of, he was given that opportunity. So I'm like the type of person to just take the opportunities and just give it a go. And we it may not be a long-term role, but take advantage of it. So because of that, I feel like I've had to take on more domestic duties than, what he was doing at that point. So there are times where I'm feeling really like feeling that struggle between working in the business, on the business, and then the kid side of things. Yeah.
And the reason why I asked is because, as we're saying, like people reach out, we all look at each other in financial advice, and I'm sure every industry is like this, but everyone looks at who's successful, who's not, and goes like, and no one actually, like, we don't all publicly list our profit and losses and our personal income. No. So no one actually knows how successful anyone is. And some of the most like publicly successful business, I personally, just because I'm a nosy human being and I'm interested in business, I ask people, how are you going? Like, do you have a healthy profit, or are you guys spending everything you earn? And so there are some really successful businesses that just have no profit, and they're okay with that. That's intentional for some people. So I think it's really interesting to talk about this topic of going, when you're self-employed, be willing to lose money, and not just actually lose money and spend money, but like your income's going to drop. And at what length will it get replaced that you otherwise wouldn't? And then also over time, you've got to recover those losses. And or else the whole thing's been, a waste of time.
You've been better off as an employee.
Yeah. And so I find it really funny now in my business. I'm actually at the point where we're earning more than I otherwise would have and earning profit. But then I look at, the net 12 years I've been in business, I'm still worse off.
Right.
But a part of me is like, well, I'm earning better than I would otherwise. And there's a little bit of this kind of interesting kind of guilt I personally have of going, is it right? Is it fair? Should I be investing more in the business, or is it okay to take this? But even though, theoretically, I'm still net worse off. Over the 12 years.
Glad that you've said that, Phil. Thank you for being like, I know, and you're always so open when I contact you and say, hey, like this is going on. You're always so open and helpful. So I really want to thank you for that. And you actually gave me a really good tip recently where you said, oh, you see how you said, do you mind sharing? Don't say, do you mind sharing? Just ask people for the information. They'll give it to you. Don't say, do you mind? Don't give them an option. So that's a tip for everyone else, I guess. But yeah, you're 100% right. Like you've got to make sure that longer term that don't be, apologize for making money. Cause like you said, you sometimes feel guilty, but I also, part of me also goes, well, I'm getting this like lifestyle aspect to it as well. And, that's been really great when I've got the young kids and my son is in his second year of school and my daughter's about to start school next year. So today I'm finishing at, 2:30 to go pick my daughter up from kindy to take her to her prep orientation, which is the first year of school next year. So, I'm not having to ask anyone to do those kinds of things. And I've got the VAs that are going to keep things ticking along, even though I'm not sitting at the computer. So, I have chosen to reinvest money back into the business to grow it. And so it's not all reliant on me. But yeah, hopefully that does pay off over time.
And one thing about, people do talk about this lifestyle. And it is true. I can, my calendar's completely free today because I intentionally try and make it full day free to think about the business. But the other thing that, and I'd be interested to know your thought is, I personally can't ever switch off like my brain to think about the business. Like even when I'm with the kids and I'm very intentional and present, I try and be very intentional and present with the girls. But when everyone's in bed, just straight away I'm thinking about the business, reading books, listening to podcasts, thinking about, leadership, people, culture, how do we grow the business? Like in the shower all morning, all I was thinking about was, what are our strategic plans for the business over the next 3 years? Yeah. And so that's the thing that, and for me, I'm very comfortable. I'm wired that way. I geek out over this stuff. I actually really enjoy it. But it is something that people think about. Yes, you've got this lifestyle, but you've always got this in the back of your mind, constantly thinking about your business. Is that true of your situation?
100%. And I'm struggling to remember before I started my business, was I the same? Because I feel like financial advisors, like we generally do have to have that desire to continue to learn. Like that's part of, we've got continuous like CPD and all that kind of stuff. So, and a few years ago when I was still like, climbing that corporate ladder kind of thing, it was always around like, what else can I do to improve, to be better? And so I think I've always been like this anyway. But yeah, like you would have, I think I tagged you in an Instagram story over the weekend when I took my kids out and we drove all around and went to all these different parks and places. And so when I was in the car, I was listening to a podcast while they were playing games on devices in the back. And I listened to like all these different business and industry podcasts during that time. So yeah, I don't switch off either.
And yeah, touching on that point, I didn't really have a big career. Like I got thrown into the deep end, starting my business early. So I'd be interested to know, try and reflect on your time. Do you feel like you were always kind of that way wired, like thinking about stuff, like, or did you feel like, hey, I was pretty easy to kind of clock on, clock off mentally as well as physically?
No, I've never been one of those type of people. So I don't know if it's just personality or I did mention in our last episode that I did come from a family of like business owners. So it's always that business discussion. It was always around the dinner table and it was like that's all we ever spoke about. So I don't know if it's just my upbringing as well.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think a lot of advisors, I don't know many advisors that actually just switch on, switch off, even if they are employees. So I don't know if you have a different.
Oh, no. I mean, the reason I asked the question is because I've been self-employed for a long time and I wasn't really an employed advisor for that long. And so I don't remember too much thinking about work outside of work. But I'm trying to reconcile, is that just my perception that as an employee you can kind of switch on, switch off? Or is that just
what do your advisors say in the business that you?
I don't know. It's a funny question when you employ someone and you then ask them, do you switch off completely mentally once you're not here? It's kind of this implied, like, you know, it's kind of an odd question because it's an implied like you shouldn't, because you should always be thinking about work. Like, as like, I think colleagues can ask those questions of each other, but me being an employer, that it's hard to ask that question legitimately and get a legitimate answer for it. And I think the team are pretty candid with me and honest, but yeah, I haven't actually asked that question so much.
Fair enough.
I'd be interested to know your thoughts today in today's market in financial advice. Do you feel it's better to be an employed advisor or go and start your own business? Like, what's your recommendation for others?
Yeah, like I'm so pro starting your own business. Like, obviously we need employed advisors out there as well. But it's not for the faint-hearted. So you definitely have to have the right mindset, the drive. Like we spoke about, be willing to lose some money for a bit in terms of taking a pay cut while you're growing that asset and growing your salary and reinvesting back into the business. But if anyone ever comes to me and says, oh, I really want to start my own business, like I said, I get messages weekly, like I'm not joking. And I always say, just give it a go. Like, we're young, give it a go. If it doesn't work out, you've got time to recover. And you will always wonder if you don't try. So, and that's exactly what I tell my clients as well when they're thinking about, like, do they start a business, change careers, all that kind of stuff. That was my attitude towards this. I was really scared starting. I had 2 children. I was paying a fortune in childcare. I've got a mortgage, like all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, give it a go. Why not?
Yeah, and that is my recommendation when you're young. Like, just do it. Like, that was what I thought. Like, if I lose a whole bunch of money, like, there's enough time to recover it. Money comes and goes pretty quickly, and I hold fairly loosely onto, financial kind of security a bit. Probably a bit too much, fast and loose.
You have to be
but to be honest, so does my wife. My wife is a great support. She, like, we've had some stuff even recently where, my wife has just been like, look, if we lose it all and have to move in with family, who cares? Like, and it's nothing like that dramatic that's happened in our business, but it's just that mindset of going, let's just hold loosely to this thing and not try and kind of, to protect ourselves and our financial well-being. And so I think a lot about that. But I do find it harder if you're getting older, you're building up debts, you got young kids. It is harder to make that move. And my personal view these days is actually, on balance, it is probably leaning. I've always been in your position, always start your own business. Like, it never computed in my mind why people wouldn't. But now, on balance, I actually say, I actually think almost being an employed advisor is like okay for a lot of people, when in the past it was never okay to anyone.
Like, we definitely need employed advisors. Like, I'm not saying everyone should start a business. I'm saying you've got to have the right mindset, and it's not for like the weak. That's what I was trying to say. But I do think that just being an advisor in general, whether you're an employed advisor, whether you're starting your own business, it is never a better time to be an advisor. There is hardly any of us out there. There is so much demand, so many clients. We're finally being seen as a profession majority of the times. So I do think now is the best time to be an advisor ever, in my opinion.
Is there something, looking back over the last 3 years, is there something you wish you did do earlier on or even more in recent times? And also, is there something that you wish you didn't do?
I wish that I had maybe increased my fees sooner. Like, it's been a gradual thing over the last 3 years, and they have, gone up slowly in increments. But I wish I kind of just backed myself a bit more in that regard. And something that I wish I didn't do. I guess sometimes I get a bit distracted with like new shiny software or tech or something that I think is going to solve the problem. But my Arthur, who is the owner of Spark Advisors, who I'm licensed through, he made a really good comment a couple of years ago that kind of like hit the nail on the head, where he said, sometimes advisors are always looking for, tech to solve our problems. But like, if you're a crap advisor. Like, it's not going to solve anything if you're not having the right conversations with the client and, not doing your job properly. Like, the tech's not going to solve anything. So that I'm glad I got that message quite early on, because then it's made me stop looking for these things to solve everything. And just I think that's kind of and the other thing I'll add is probably spending some more time on building the systems and processes a bit sooner, because like I said, I waited 10 months when I was hiring someone, but you don't really know until, I don't know if that's even far in or if that's still early days, but yeah, I think it's just a never ending process. And I know you've made comments in the Facebook group before where you've said to somebody, if you think it's just one thing that's going to change your whole business, it's not, it's a continuous adjustment and continuous process improvement.
My view is with processes, processes is the core of everyone's business, and you need to be very good at processes. My lived experience, if you will, has been I spent so much time early on in my business when I wasn't growing, I wasn't getting any new clients, thinking about the most perfect process.
Yeah.
For no clients to go through.
Yeah, that's so true.
And then I decided, actually, let's just get clients and then build the processes that works for those clients. Understand what their pain points are for the business, understand what their pain points are once we have 100 clients going through. And then you can now you said you've brought on 110 clients.
Yeah.
The next 110 their problems much better than you did at the beginning. So today you could build processes that are much better than you thought they were going to be back then. So
such a good point.
I always just think, just get clients.
I think maybe I have glossed over that point around getting clients, because I was so lucky that I already had all these people wanting to work with me before I even started. So that's probably why I've glossed over that. Whereas you listen to almost any podcast. So I'm always listening to business podcasts, like I said, and they're always talking about selling and getting clients and all that. I don't have that problem. I actually have a problem getting the work done. So I think that is probably why I've glossed over that point around getting clients versus focusing on making the actual process efficient so I can see those clients that are there.
And in love and respect, let me push back on that point.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason why I will is because a lot of people like to say, I don't have a problem with clients. And it just boosts our ego, makes us feel really good. And we say, I say that at Sky, we don't have a problem finding clients. But no one, if they want to grow their business, no one really thinks, I'm all sorted with a client flow, all good. You would have, and depending on the growth that you actually want for your business in the long term, if you want to employ advisors or whatever, if you actually didn't have a client inflow problem, you'd have 3 advisors and 10 support staff today. And so again, if you brought on 20 more clients every single month, you would solve your process issues and you'd hire up and you'd do these things. So again, I love and respect and not in a harsh way, but just, I don't think you have a client problem. Just to be clear, I don't think you're not getting enough clients at all, but people think it's still not the client inflow problem, because you would hire an advisor if you were very confident you could get 110 next calendar year.
I guess for me, the reason, because I had been looking for an associate, the reason I have kind of put that on hold was because I am just conscious that I am still the advisor in my business, as well as managing and working on the business and having to train and manage the staff. And I'm just conscious of trying to find that balance right, because if I take on an associate, for an example, I have to make sure I've got the capacity to look after them as well. And that is why I say I just need to make sure that is all taken care of before I start. I think I can hire more people, and sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to hire all this staff, and then I'm like, it just feels really like I'm losing control of things really quickly if I don't have all those workflows set up properly.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, there's plenty of dynamics, because it's not just straight business. Because if you hire a whole bunch of people, you'd need to work harder, you'd sacrifice your work, your family, environment. And so there are plenty of complexities in this.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've got a very scary staff growth trajectory over the next 12 months. We wanted to hire an insane amount of people.
I just saw like 20-something, was it 21 people you took on in
last financial year?
Yeah, I just saw that report come out. It was wild.
Yeah, and we want to hire, it's like 30 people in the next 12 months. That's kind of our growth trajectory, and it freaks me out. And you know, because how do we operationally do that? How do we get people scaled up and onboarded and trained and all of this stuff?
I'm glad you're saying it freaks you out, because sometimes you're so chill about stuff when I talk to you. And I'm like, are you not freaking out right now?
No, I do. And like when my team kind of, you know, someone in my team was kind of doing the numbers and going, this is what I think. I was like, oh, I vomited after seeing that number. And then I didn't actually vomit, but I mentally vomited after that. But a part of me is just thinking, like, can we actually bring on the clients to fulfill this? Like, you know, if we're going to make this promise to ourselves, and is this going to be our goals and aims? You know, we want to be number one licensee in new premiums in 2027 financial year. And that's a lot of like premiums, but really it's not about the premiums. That's the easiest industry measurement. It's about getting lives insured. People, it's not insured. And so like all of those things like freak me out bringing those people on. But, you know, you said a part of me freaks out because I have to give up control. That's the biggest part of my growth journey. It's like going, I think I'm the best at everything in my business. I legitimately, and I still think that. Like I do.
I definitely don't think that. Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's park that aside. But I think that because like I know my business the best, I know my clients the best, I know all these things. But I've had to learn to go, okay, someone else can do it, and I may think it's 90% as good as what I would do.
Yeah.
But it means it frees me up and gives me capacity to do other things that are more important. And so, yeah, you got to kind of like give up a bit of control as you grow and hire an associate, because they'll work out something that you just never thought of. There's so much better. Like, you know, one of our team members took on our needs analysis, and there's pretty complex calculations in it. And I did it all everything. Then he did it, and it just made it so much better.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, actually, I may think I'm better than everyone, but I'm really actually not. Like, and so, and then it just means, okay, when we update the needs analysis, we lean on one of our advisors to do it, because and we chat and I help him and support him, but he basically does it, and he's better than me at it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting thinking. I like to analyze other advisors, and when people talk about, you know, it's the systems, that's why I don't want to hire. I'm like, bring on 110 clients a year, and then you work out the systems pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's true. It'll hurt for a bit, but you'll figure it out.
Anyway, apologies for the lecture. It wasn't intentional.
No, it's all good. I love it.
Yeah. So I think this has been super helpful. I love hearing people's journeys and appreciate you being really transparent about it. I think that's one thing that, you know, my learnings from it is that people just don't replace their salaries as quick as we all think.
Yeah, we always have high hopes.
Yeah, but it's just a reality of running a business. It's really hard to do it. So, you know, I think you sharing that, hey, I'm almost at what I would have replaced, but I've got the lifestyle balance and family balance. I think that's really helpful for others watching on, because we all see that you're incredibly successful, you're doing really well, but we don't really talk about that side. And me saying, hey, I'm like kind of just still net worse off salary than I would over the last 12 years is something that people often don't talk about as well.
Yeah, always appreciate your transparency as well, Phil, over the last few years. Every time I've reached out, you've always been so open with everything. So thanks again. And I know you do that on the podcast. So, yeah, cheers.
No worries. Last two questions. When do you get a chance to do your emails?
So last time I said that I look at them all day, every day, and get really distracted by it. These days, I literally shut my emails down during the day and just open them a couple of times a day. So I'm so proud of that boundary that I've put in place. And I've learned, like, what I do now is just a couple of times a week. Like, I'll obviously answer stuff that's like important, you know, daily. But if there's stuff that can just wait a couple of days, I just do big chunks of email time a couple times a week. And I don't have a set time like all day. It's just more like, what does my calendar look like? And I'll just sit down and just punch through my emails and clear it all out, you know, a couple of times a week. rather than doing that daily. So yeah, super proud of that boundary I put in place since a couple of years ago.
That's great. I mean, I'm useless on my emails. My emails are like my task lists. But it means everything, every other communication thing that the team do, it's like, just get in my inbox. I don't want to message here. I don't want to look here. It's like, get in my inbox and it'll get done.
I actually thought about that this morning when I was messaging you, because I was like, oh, we were talking on Instagram, but then I've just messaged you on Facebook Messenger, and then you've emailed me another time. I was like, how do I contact you?
Emails. That's why, that's why I missed your Instagram message and I didn't get back to you for like 3 days. I'm useless. Emails, I'm a ninja. But too much of a ninja. What's one interesting hobby that you have?
Well, I also said last podcast that I was starting to get back into exercise, and I've been really good with that, as you know.
Anyone who doesn't follow Deline on Instagram, follow her. You get what's F21?
F45. Yeah, I've stuck to that for I think it's been it must be 3 years now that I've stuck to F45, and I average like 4 classes a week. And I can actually do like 4 chin-ups now. Like, so good. I just have never been this strong or fit before. So yeah, that's my only interest. That's all I do outside of work and kids.
Yeah. Oh, good job. I mean, that's amazing. That's it's impressive to be able to dedicate that time, and it's something that I am trying to get better at, and is doing more exercise and not getting fat. I do a lot of sport. Like, I do a lot of like recreational sport. Every week I'll do something. I'll play basketball, I'll fill in for a basketball team or window cricket. Yeah. But just like regular gym.
Like structured stuff, yeah.
But it's something I should do.
There's a bunch of really competitive people at my F45, and the trainers will just message me and be like, oh, I booked you in for the class tonight. And you're like, okay, guess we're going to gym. So it's really good.
Okay, competition. I think I thrive on competition. Yeah. Maybe I need to join one with competitive people. Sounds good.
Yes.
Awesome, Deline. No, thank you. How do people get in touch with you if they want to reach out and ask advice on starting their business?
Do not call me. I'm really clear on people not phoning me. I won't answer my phone if I don't know your number.
0497 321. Just break it up.
No, literally, do not call me. I do not answer unknown numbers anymore. Go to voice message. You can contact me on LinkedIn, Deline Jacovides, or Instagram, which is Mazi Wealth, or my website has my email on there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. If anyone out there is thinking about starting their business or, in their first few years, definitely share this podcast episode. I think it's super helpful, and appreciate you being so open to share.
Thanks, Phil.
Cool.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
If you've enjoyed this episode and you think someone else will get value out of it, I'd love it if you could forward it on to them. And as always, we can continue the conversation in the My Risk Advisor Facebook group. All you need to do, open up Facebook and search My Risk Advisor, and I'll see you in there.